Give my precious Carly to a single mother? No way. My girlfriend's mom sneered, her words dripping with disdain. That's right. Show me your house next time. A home reflects a family status, after all. Let's see if you're worthy of my Carly. Her father's unpleasant laughter echoed inside me, tearing something apart. My name is Judas. I'm a 45-year-old bachelor, working in the IT industry and earning extra on the side. All these years, I've been working hard to send money back to Mom, trying to repay her in some way. I was raised by a single mother, just Mom. After she gave birth to me, Dad disappeared, so I never knew my real dad's face. He must have hated responsibility and ran away. Mom would say, laughing it off like it was a joke, but it must have been hard for her. Moreover, my dad had left her with a huge debt. Dad pleaded for help, so I signed for his debts, though we'd be a couple in the future. Such a foolish thing to do. Laughing, Mom continued. But you know what? He did have good looks, at least. Thanks to that, I was able to have a handsome son like you, Judas. I'm happy about that. Mom laughed heartily as she said that. Even though I grew up in a single-parent home, drowning in debt, I was raised with plenty of love from Mom. That's why, as an adult, I've worked hard to make life easier for her, to keep her from suffering because of money. Driven by this thought, I had reached this age when Mom suddenly said, I'd like to see my grandchild soon. That made me reflect on my own age. Don't you have a girlfriend? Mom asked, sounding concerned. Yes, I do, I replied shortly. Her name is Carly. She's an elite banker, a graduate of a prestigious women's university. She often reminded me of that. We met at a mixer, meant just to balance out the numbers. Oh, Judas, you're from a single-parent family. That's so sad. Despite her insensitive comment when we first met, Carly became quite attached to me, and somehow we ended up in a relationship. It's been exactly 1 year now. Judas, being a single mom's kid, you must have been poor when you were little, right? Poor thing. My parents are elites, super rich. Carly would say things like that every now and then. Honestly, it didn't feel great, but Carly was blunt and meant no harm. She's 10 years younger than me, so I tried not to mind her sometimes disrespectful way of speaking. Judas, I want to get married. Every time we met, she would say this, and I would skillfully dodge the topic. But now, I began to feel a bit guilty for possibly being insincere. She's outspoken, but a bright girl. Maybe with Carly, I could build a happy home. Thinking seriously about this, Mom asked, Have you never thought about marriage before? No, not until you mentioned it, Mom. That's not good. Good girls get snapped up quickly. You should have a proper talk with her. Okay, I will. Later, when I brought up marriage with Carly, she said, Too late, Judas. I was about to become an old maid waiting for you. Her reaction was more intense than I expected, and I took a step back. Then let's visit my parents' house next week for introductions. Next week? Yes, next week. You're not as busy as me, Judas, right? Her slightly annoying way of speaking was typical of someone 10 years younger. Maybe that's just how young people are these days, I thought, as I agreed to her request. And then came the day I had promised to meet with her. I got dressed up, and with a nervous expression was led to her family home. Don't be so tense, she said, laughing. But looking at Carly's laughter, I felt my face stiffen even more. After all, I was about to face a major moment as a man, asking Carly's father for her hand. We're here. She pointed to a high-rise tower apartment where her parents lived. It's not a rental, you know. Carly said this as she led me inside, making me wonder why she cared so much about that. But I just nodded in agreement. And now, here I am, standing in front of the entrance to Carly's parents' home. Don't be nervous. We're home. Oblivious to my thoughts, Carly opened the door and pulled me inside. Welcome back, Carly. Oh, hello there. Are you Judas? Nice to meet you. I'm Judas. As I greeted her, Kathy's mother looked me up and down and laughed mockingly through her nose. I've heard you were a single mother's child and was worried about your social manners. But you can at least greet people, it seems. I was taken aback by Carly's mother's words. Even though we were about to become family, this was our first meeting. Despite her rude remarks, I tried to remain composed and handed her the sweets I brought as a gift. Please, if you'd like, enjoy these with Carly and your family. We don't need such a poor-looking gift. Her father's words made me awkwardly retract my offer, apologizing. I thought they'd like it since Mom loves these sweets. Judas, there's something important we need to discuss. Ah, yes. Right, the marriage talk. I braced myself to ask for Carly's hand. When can you quit your job? Pardon? I asked back in confusion. Well, we need you to quit soon and focus on being a house husband. Otherwise, Carly can't work freely. Mom, you're rushing things. Not at all. You're not the quickest learner, so you'll need time, and there's a limit to how much time we can give you. Right, Carly. You'll have to support him now. You need to work hard and get promoted fast. Don't worry. I'm a super elite among elite bankers. As the three of them continued the conversation without me, I couldn't help but interject. What are you talking about? Marriage, of course. Carly's mother continued in a patronizing tone. As you know, my Carly graduated from a top women's university. She's an elite, unlike a single mother's child like you. Her contempt was so evident that I couldn't hide my disgust. Of course, it's not just about university. Carly is working hard as an elite banker. Housework is nothing but a hindrance to her. That's why we were looking for a good housekeeper. That's why we found you. You're just a lowly IT worker from a single mother's home, without money. It's a good deal for you if Carly supports you. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I opened up, ready to confront Carly's parents with all the questions that had been building up. You keep demeaning single mothers, but what's wrong with being raised by one? Mom raised me well all by herself, and for your information, I'm not struggling financially. Stop belittling me and my mom with your baseless prejudice. Did you go to college? Pardon? Did you attend college? No, I didn't. I couldn't afford it. So I started working right after high school. Upon hearing that, Carly's parents started laughing uproariously. Not struggling financially without a college degree? That's the problem with single mothers. They only see things from their narrow perspective. Excuse me. Judas, what is it? To raise a top-notch person, you need money. For tuition at elite schools, and for the cost of education that shapes a refined character. Do you understand? Carly's mother spoke smugly, and I glared at her quietly. So someone raised by a poor single mother like you is third-rate or less. Do you even know where my husband works? With that, Carly's mother proudly announced the name of the company where her husband worked. You're poor, but you must know the name, right? Only a man as high status as my husband is suitable for Carly. Did you actually think you were going to marry Carly? Stop it, Dad. Judas and I will be married, but it's only for mutual benefit. There will be no romantic relationship between us. Carly then turned to me and said, Right, Judas? Carly, convinced she's right, ignored everything I said. Judas will do my housework for me. I don't have time for it if I want to succeed. Oh, and I don't want kids with Judas either. But that's fine, right? It'll get you out of your poor life. Though I can't take care of your mom. Maybe you should just cut ties with her. Oh, I just had a great idea. Carly laughed loudly, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. Wait a minute. That sounds like you're treating me like a housekeeper. Well, yes. What? You'll become my housekeeper. That's why you're marrying me. I was stunned by Carly's words. What are you talking about? If you want a housekeeper, hire one. Marrying someone just because you want a housekeeper? What kind of logic is that?
Well, I don't want a stranger wandering around my house. I have the right to choose, right? I think you'd be perfect as my housekeeper. Why are you so angry?
I was dumbfounded by Carly's nonchalant attitude. Right, Carly hadn't changed since we met. She always mocked me for being a single mother's child and laughed at my poverty. I thought Carly was just young and blunt, but I was wrong. She looked down on me from the beginning, seeing me not as a partner, but as a housekeeper. Overwhelmed by this harsh reality, Carly's mother spoke. A poor person from a single mother's family can't possibly be worthy of my precious Carly. You're just her housekeeper. She sneered at me, looking down. That's right. Show us your house sometime. A home reflects its family status. Let's see if you're suitable for my Carly. Though I doubt there's any need for that. Carly's father's mocking laughter echoed in me, and something inside me tore apart. I could end this discomfort by walking away now, but I couldn't let it go. I could tolerate their mockery of me, but not the insult to my mom who raised me all by herself. So you're mocking me and my mom for being poor? What are you talking about? We've been saying that from the start. I quietly replied, I understand. Next month is my mom's birthday party. Oh, even poor people throw parties? It must be a tiny party, right? Ignoring Carly's parents' sarcasm, I continued. It's a grand party with close friends and family of my mom. How about it? Will you attend? You might change your mind about us being poor.
What is this, Judas? Do you know some rich people? Pfft, barring the tiger's might, aren't we? But after all, a poor person's friends are just poor people too. Just the best among the lowly, right? Trying to compete with us? Typical single mother upbringing, no brains.
Well, let's just see how rich your acquaintances are. Maybe it'll change our minds. As they mocked me, I emotionlessly said, I'll inform you of the date later, and left the unpleasant family. Hello, Mom. Sorry to bother you, but there's something I need to ask. There are some people I'd like to invite to your party next month. And so I made a request to Mom. And then came the day of Mom's birthday party. I went to pick up Carly and her parents in my car to bring them to my family home for the party. Sorry to keep you waiting. Please get in. What a poor-looking car. At least get a Mercedes or something.
Judas, this car is so small.
Ignoring their complaints about my average-priced car, I drove on.
Where are you taking us?
It's my family home, I replied shortly. It's a bit away from the city center, surrounded by lush greenery. I see. The countryside is cheaper, isn't it?
Poor thing. When you have no money, you have to live in such inconvenient places. The countryside has nothing. I could never live in such a place. Poor Judas.
I focused on driving, amazed at their endless stream of insults. Listening to them was pointless. After about 30 minutes, I welcomed Carly and her parents to my family home, relieved to escape the uncomfortable conversation. What is this house? It's like a rabbit hutch.
Don't be so harsh. It's impressive for a single mother to own a house. Well, my home is a tower apartment, not a rental, but owned.
As soon as they entered, the three of them began their crass laughter, shocking all the guests already at the party. Their raucous behavior was certainly leaving the worst impression on everyone. My home, often complimented for its stylish resort cottage vibe, seemed no better than a rabbit hutch to these three. To them, anything outside a city tower apartment must look like a hovel for the poor.
Nice to meet you. I'm Judas's mom. Thank you for coming to my birthday party. Are you the Carly that Judas mentioned?
Mom, sensing the tension, gently tried to engage with Carly.
Yes, nice to meet you, Auntie. I'm Carly. If Judas told you, then it's simple. We're getting married, but only because I need a housekeeper. So I won't support you or call you mother-in-law.
Carly's parents chimed in, completely disregarding Mom's kindness.
Just as I thought, poor people like single mothers attract more of their kind. Look at all these guests. They all have the look of poverty. I'm scared.
and thus they began to insult all the guests at Mom's birthday party. Like a group of plague bearers, probably all low-educated. As the three of them spoke their minds freely, the room began to buzz with whispers, but neither Mom nor I made any move to stop them. We had foreseen this situation, and had even anticipated it. We had informed the guests beforehand that their behavior was part of a sort of sideshow. It turned out even worse than we had conveyed, making the atmosphere more unpleasant than expected. But aside from that, everything was going as planned. So why did you invite us to this rabbit hutch?
What a waste of time, not a house worth visiting. Don't say that, Dad and Mom. We knew this, didn't we?
The three of them, still laughing loudly, must not have realized yet. They were unknowingly setting the stage for their own downfall with their own actions. I almost smirked at the thought, but composed myself and began to speak. There's someone I'd really like you to meet.
Someone you want us to meet?
Yes, I'm sure you'll be surprised. I paused for a moment before calling out that person's name and leading them over to Carly's father. Carly's father, who had been mocking me until then, suddenly turned pale as he faced the individual. What are you doing here? Carly's father trembled as the man standing next to me furrowed his brow in displeasure. What are you doing in a place like this? President, why are you here? Carly's father, panicking at the sudden appearance of his company's president, was ignored as the man, referred to as the president, replied calmly but sternly. Why? Today is the birthday party of a major shareholder in our company. I was kindly invited. I thought you were here for the same reason, but apparently not. Major shareholder's birthday party? You can't be serious. Carly's father quickly looked at my mother.
Yes, I'm that major shareholder. I own more than 50% of your company's shares.
My mom smiled warmly, leaving Carly's father speechless. That's impossible. A poor person like you can't be. Oh, you still insult our company's major shareholder in front of me? Carly's father shrank back in fear. It was understandable. He had been belittling and looking down upon a major shareholder of his company until just now. Moreover, owning over 50% of the company's shares meant having the right to single-handedly pass ordinary resolutions at shareholders' meetings and, in some cases, make almost all the company's key decisions, including appointing or dismissing directors. In other words, insulting a major shareholder was tantamount to antagonizing the president of his own company. Despite knowing this, or perhaps not realizing it, he had insulted the major shareholder in front of the president. Such folly was incomparable. Your name was Carly, right?
Branch manager?
A man referred to as the branch manager stepped in front of Carly and sighed deeply. I thought you were a bright and capable young woman, but I overestimated you.
No, that's not true. I'm very capable. I can live up to the branch manager's expectations.
Then why don't you know the face of one of our bank's most valued customers?
Huh?
That lady is a VIP client at your bank.
What?
Carly gasped at my mother in disbelief.
Yes, I trust your bank with a substantial amount of money. I've been treated very well, and I'm truly grateful.
Mom smiled, revealing herself to be a highly valued customer of the bank. Banks operate based on the money deposited with them. Therefore, individuals who deposit large sums of money are considered valued customers and are treated accordingly. Such clients are crucial to banks. It would be impossible for the branch manager to remain silent when such a valued individual is belittled.
How could this be? Someone living in a house like this can't be a major shareholder or a VIP bank client.
Carly's mother seemed unable to accept reality, closing her eyes and covering her ears. A sad case of denial. A perfect end for someone who viewed the world through their own biased lens. The trio turned pale and shook their heads in denial at a situation worse than they could have ever imagined. It's not what you think, President. This is just a family joke. A joke? My daughter has been in a relationship with your esteemed major shareholder's son, with the intention of marriage. So what happened just now was just a minor incident within the family. Seeing the man who had been mocking me suddenly change his tune in front of those he had ridiculed, I unconsciously let out a sigh. I was astounded. Such poor grace. I firmly spoke up to Carly's father, who had started making desperate excuses. No, I was dating Carly, but we never intended to marry. Moreover, she clearly stated she wanted me as a housekeeper, not a husband, after marriage. She even wanted me to quit my job. Carly, panicking, started to deny her past behavior.
No, that's a lie, Judas. I love you and want to be your wife. Believe me, Judas.
It's too late for anything you say now. Words once spoken can't be taken back, and time past can't be rewound. Any small affection I might have had for you has long since dried up. Even if you now profess your love for me, an intelligent woman like you, who graduated from a top university, should easily understand it's futile.
But I want to be your wife. I'll quit my job. I'll be your housekeeper. Please marry me. Marry me right now.
Startled by Carly's sudden outburst, I wondered what to do. She had wanted me as a housekeeper for her career, and now she seemed to have lost track of her own words. As I pondered this, Mom slowly entered the conversation.
I'm sorry, but I don't think you're suitable to be my precious son's wife. What? Why, mother-in-law? I want to be Judas's wife so badly.
Mom, clearly exasperated, spoke gently but firmly.
You see, the reason I have so much money is all thanks to Judas. He has worked hard and sent me a lot of money, allowing me to invest in companies I like and deposit money in trustworthy banks. He's done so much to ensure I never have to struggle for money. It's sad to think that someone who belittled such a wonderful son could become his wife. But mother-in-law... I'm not your mother-in-law, but I'll give you a piece of advice. Real rich people don't flaunt their wealth. It attracts the wrong kind of attention. And hiding wealth often reveals people's true nature, just like you.
The three of them collapsed in defeat in front of a smiling Mom. Months have passed since then. Carly's father, while not fired, is now rumored in the company for his disrespectful behavior towards a major shareholder, working uncomfortably. Carly's mother has been ostracized by her social circle after one of the party guests spread her rude comments among the elite mothers group. Carly herself, marked by the branch manager and now off the promotion track, has been shunned by men due to her unpleasant personality. As for me, I continue to enjoy a relaxed life with Mom, and just the two of us. Of course, my ties with Carly are completely severed.
Judas, do you lack judgment in choosing partners like me?
What would you do if that were true?
It's troubling. I want to see my grandchild, but I don't want you to struggle like I did.
Mom, deep in thought, doesn't yet know. In fact, I've recently started seeing someone new, and I plan to introduce her to Mom soon. Moreover, she doesn't know that my new girlfriend is already expecting our child.
Should I give up on seeing my grandchild?
As Mom sighed, I had to restrain myself from grinning at the thought of her surprised face. No need to give up.
What?
A good wife will come along.
Really?
Watching Mom laugh, I felt genuinely excited for the future.
My name is Tammy, a 39-year-old working in the sales department of a trading company. Since my student days, I've always had a knack for taking the lead in groups and bringing people together. Even now, I'm in charge of several subordinates, and I don't lose out to the veteran male team in sales performance. I take pride in the strong support I receive as a reliable manager from my female colleagues. However, even when I come home to my apartment, exhausted from work, there's no one there to welcome me. I've separated from my husband of 17 years, and I've decided to live apart from my 15-year-old daughter. The boxes in the apartment I've newly rented are still piled up, unpacked, but I don't regret it. I'm going to start over from here on out. Allow me to explain why I've decided to start this new life. Back then, I was living in an apartment with my husband Bob and our daughter Rebecca. Bob was a college classmate, and after we ran into each other post-graduation and dated for 2 years, we got married. Bob used to work in the sales department of a printing company until a few years ago, but now he's a web designer. After leaving his job, he became self-employed and worked from home on jobs he gets online. Our daughter Rebecca is in 8th grade, The first sign of trouble was a change in Rebecca's attitude.
What the heck? I told you to buy the moisturizing cream.
Oh, sorry, honey, I totally forgot. I promise I'll get it after work tomorrow.
You're totally useless. I can't believe it.
Rebecca started to look at me with cold eyes more often, and her words became more and more harsh each day. I guess it can't be helped because she's at that age. That's what I would tell myself at first.
Hey, Dad, do you want to go out with me on your day off? There's a movie I want to see.
Sure, sounds fun. Which movie? In the past, Bob would usually say, let's go with Mom as well. But now it seemed he had no qualms about leaving me behind. Hey, give me some money. You heard our conversation, right? Rebecca and I are going to see a movie this weekend. $300 should be enough. $300? Isn't that a bit too much? Can't you use your debit card for your account? Just do it. I'll need cash too. We're going to do some shopping and eat out too. At some point, even Bob began to treat me poorly. Our conversations as a couple decreased, and I began to feel isolated. Then one Sunday, on that day, Bob and Rebecca complained about the breakfast I had prepared.
What the hell is this? I always tell you I want my eggs over easy. Get it right.
Well, there's no need to be so upset.
And the soup doesn't taste good. Didn't I tell you before that I hate mushrooms?
But they're good for you. Can't you say something to her, Bob? What do you mean? It's your fault for not being able to do a single thing you're told, and you're supposed to be an adult. Cold words. Something was off. I wanted to know why. By the time I realized this, it was already too late. One week, when I learned that Bob was planning to go out, I decided to secretly follow him. Bob worked from home, as I said, and didn't have any plans to go to the barber or the doctor. So why was he going out? I was suspicious. My fears came true. Waiting for Bob in the cafe was a young woman in her 20s with a good figure. When they left the store, they walked arm in arm. I felt dizzy and couldn't follow them. The day I dreaded might come has arrived. Yes, I've always been afraid that Bob might run off with another woman someday, because I didn't have confidence in my looks, because I knew I was below average when it came to looks. Bob, on the other hand, was undeniably handsome. He was so handsome, it made me wonder why he chose me. Later, I hired a detective to investigate Bob's relationship with the woman. Your husband's mistress is a 26-year-old woman who works at a cosmetic surgery clinic. Her name is Sofia Garcia. Among the evidence photos the detective showed me, there were some that were too explicit to look at directly. They were openly kissing, entering a hotel, and among those photos, there were some that had a certain other person in them. This one too. This one also shows the three of them with Rebecca too. What's going on? What does this mean? So it was your daughter after all. It appears that your husband's relationship with Sophia is approved by Rebecca. I was dumbstruck. I felt an acute sense of alienation and loneliness. What had I done to deserve this? Biting back my tears, I made another request to the detective to record conversations between Bob and Rebecca. Several times a month, they would extract money from me to go enjoy their movie dates and shopping sprees. I was certain that somewhere in their banter, there must be some undeniable evidence. Days later, I played back the sound recording the detective sent me. I was speechless.
She's seriously annoying. She can't even follow simple instructions and then tries to play the mother card.
Well, she is technically your mom.
Why don't you just dump her already? Sophia's been waiting patiently, hasn't she?
About that, Rebecca, I'm thinking it's still too soon to think about divorce.
Huh? That doesn't make any sense. Sophia's been waiting, right?
I've talked it through with Sophia.
I just can't stand breathing the same air as that ugly woman.
Same here, but she earns the money more than me, frustratingly so. You get it, right?
Is that so? I didn't really know.
Yeah, that's how it is. If I divorce her carelessly, I won't be able to use that money. We've got to play this carefully.
So we just pull out all the money we can and then let Sophia move in?
That's right. I need to check if Sophia can handle that kind of life. And if not, I'll have to persuade her.
I think Sophia will be fine. She's so understanding. Beautiful women are just different, you know?
Yeah, I know. I regret it so much. The biggest mistake of my life was marrying that ugly woman. That day, under a hot shower, I wept copiously. I cried and cried and cried and finally made up my mind. Enough was enough. If that was their plan, so be it. I'm not stupid. Rather than let them take advantage of me, I decided it was high time to take some serious action. I remember the hardship of the following weeks well. Each day, I suppressed my emotions and proceeded with the preparations for my demise. Even when Rebecca's middle school graduation day arrived, no profound emotions arose in my weary heart. Oh my gosh, I can't decide on a hairstyle. It's so frustrating. Who gave me this face? Seriously. Rebecca indeed was the spitting image of me. Facing the mirror, I pretended to ignore her usual grouchy remarks. Then, hey, I need some money. Around $400 will do. What's a kid gonna do with $400? Besides, today's your graduation ceremony, isn't it? Well, obviously because it's graduation, I'm going out with friends afterwards and eating out with Dad too. In the end, I handed Rebecca the $400. This is the last time, I thought as I did so. Rebecca took the money without a word of thanks and said, Hey, I'm going to get plastic surgery soon. Plastic surgery? Yeah, I'm saying goodbye to this ugly face that looks just like yours. I can't wait. A total transformation in a month before high school starts. Okay.
Huh? I'm surprised. I thought you would be much more against it. What a letdown.
Well, I won't say anything. It's your body, Rebecca.
Yeah, you know what I mean, right? It's only natural to want to get plastic surgery with a face like this. It's your fault.
Afterwards, I drove Bob and Rebecca to middle school. Rebecca made me stop the car a little before we got to the school.
Dad and I will get off here. You can go home. You know I don't want my friends to see you, right?
Of course, I went home. I had no interest in attending the ceremony. Everything went as planned, which felt quite nice. I returned to the apartment and waited. A truck and 3 men arrived. All right, we'll pack and move things out. Given the amount of stuff, I think we should be done in about 2 hours. Thank you, I appreciate your help. That day, I moved to a new apartment, leaving the divorce papers on the table of the old apartment. I had put in a request for a vacation at my work. I toured several places domestically, savoring the rare freedom. Perhaps I could have enjoyed it more without the persistent calls from Bob and Rebecca. A few days later, I returned to the new apartment all rested from my journey when I finally answered one of Bob's incessant calls of the day. You finally answered. Hey, where are you? What are you doing? I'm just relaxing in my room watching TV. What is it? You sound so flustered. Is something wrong? What do you mean is something wrong? What do you mean by your room? Explain yourself properly. There's no what do you mean. You saw it, didn't you? The divorce papers, that's all. No explanation is needed, right? So you knew about my... About your what? If you mean your affair, I knew. I have no intention of breaking up. I figured. With your income, you can't support Rebecca. But tough luck. I'm getting divorced and taking alimony, too. Who says I'm going to pay alimony? We should talk about this matter calmly. Oh yes, you can bring Rebecca along or not. It doesn't matter to me. I didn't really want to see them anymore, so I abruptly ended the call, turned off my phone, and cut off contact. I chose the cafe to have our discussion. The same cafe where I first saw Bob meeting with Sophia, but only Bob came. There was no sight of Rebecca. She must be fresh out of plastic surgery. Poor girl. Who's that with you? This is my attorney, Mr. Johnson. You brought a lawyer? Well, did you bring the filled out divorce papers as I asked? As I've said, I won't fill out such a thing. I'll tell you as many times as it takes. I have no intention of breaking up. Do you just want the money I earn? Do you think we can continue our marriage for that reason? What? Who said I'm after your money? Who said it? You're making assumptions about people's feelings. I gave Mr. Johnson a nod. Mr. Johnson took out his smartphone and calmly pressed the play button. What started to play was a conversation between Bob and Rebecca from that day. Bob's face turned pale instantly. No wonder. It's quite something to have your own bad-mouthing played out right in front of you. I don't want to breathe the same air as that ugly woman. If I carelessly break up with her, I won't be able to use the money. No matter how many times I hear them, those harsh words cut right through my heart. Knowing that this is his true feelings sends chills down my spine. A recording. What the hell do you think you're doing? What am I doing? I think I should be the one to say that. Did you use the money I gave you to go out with that woman, Sophia? That's not exactly, but... May I confirm something? You don't intend to divorce, correct? Bob nodded, and Mr. Johnson continued. In that case, we will file for divorce with the family court. We can also discuss the division of assets. The court will hear the circumstances and verify the facts to decide whether or not the divorce should proceed. In this case, Mr. Johnson held his smartphone. The conversation with your daughter earlier is quite decisive. In my personal opinion, the divorce is almost certain. I came here today to talk about what comes next. I started taking out various documents. All of them were carefully prepared for this day. This chart shows how much money I gave you and when. This one is a record of utility bill payments. What the hell? What are you showing me all this for? And this is a record of money withdrawn from our joint account. Rebecca's surgery cost quite a bit, didn't it? Eyelid surgery, eye shape correction, double eyelid surgery, nostril reduction, philtrum reduction, creating tear bags, cheek and nasal bone shaving. The surgeries totaled $40,000. There's only about $20,000 left in the savings. There used to be $70,000. You've spent quite a bit, haven't you? That was for Rebecca. I could save up again. Do you realize that I was the one who mostly saved up that money? I was really starting to get angry. I'm okay with splitting what's left in the account for the division of property. I won't say anything about Rebecca's surgery costs. However what? I expect you to pay for the emotional distress I've suffered, so keep that in mind. And wait, there's more? Have you kept in touch with that woman, Sophia? No, not really. That's what I thought, because, well, I hired a private investigator to look into her. She's got a criminal record, so you better be careful. A criminal record? She was charged with fraud and was arrested. She was in cahoots with the director of another cosmetics surgery clinic. What the? She must have thought you and Rebecca were easy targets. My condolences. Rebecca? What about Rebecca's surgery then? I hope everything went well. Otherwise, we might have to negotiate with the hospital. Might even have to sue them. We'll have to see whether the clinic would agree to a settlement in that case. There are many dishonest clinics that deny their mistakes and dig in their heels. Hearing Mr. Johnson's words, Bob's face noticeably turned pale. That's all for today. Send the divorce papers, okay? Direct them to Mr. Johnson, since I obviously won't be giving you my address. Well, wait, please, one last thing. What? Can you lend me some money? He looked pitiful. I'm ashamed I ever fell for such a man. Absolutely not. I left the cafe with Mr. Johnson, leaving a devastated Bob behind. According to rumors, Bob and Rebecca's life turned into a complete mess afterwards. On Bob's salary alone, it was even hard to afford an apartment and support Rebecca. Eventually, Rebecca had to start doing odd jobs like newspaper delivery, and they moved to a cheaper apartment, downgrading their living standard. With just his web design projects, he couldn't make ends meet and even had to take up day labor. Pitiful, really. But Bob must pull through. After all, he hasn't finished paying my alimony yet. I decided to let him pay it off in installments. Paying out $30,000 all at once would have been impossible for Bob. Given his small business, which barely covered his side income, borrowing money would have been out of the question too. I could have let him borrow money from a loan shark, but I didn't want to put that much pressure on him. A few days later, I received a call from Rebecca. As expected, the surgery was a total failure. It was far from ideal. Rebecca and I met at the cafe and had a long chat after not seeing each other for a long time. She still had bandages on part of her face.
The surgery left marks and I need another operation to remove them. It's the worst.
Still can't get in touch with that Sophia girl, huh?
Yeah, you were right, Mom. She only saw us as easy targets.
Rebecca stared out the window, a far-off look in her eyes. She seemed more mature to me than before.
Well, I gotta go now. I have to go to my part-time job and do my high school homework afterwards. I'm really busy.
Good luck.
Thanks. Mom, I'm really sorry for all the trouble I've caused.
No need to be polite all of a sudden. I won't give you any money, okay? I won't ask for it anymore. With a wave, Rebecca left the cafe, and that's how I ended up where I am today. I don't have many regrets. I'm satisfied with my current life. Rebecca is practically living on her own now, and I have no lingering feelings for my good-for-nothing ex-husband who had nothing going for him except his looks. I saw him the other day in town. He was covered in dirt, working in construction gear and a helmet. Did he always have such gloomy eyes? He looked so different. I barely recognized him. Making a living is hard work, and he deserved to be in such a pitiful state after wasting so much money. It's not all about looks. I truly believe that now. I will continue to do my best as I am. In my eyes, the future now looks brighter than ever as I've hit the reset button on my life.
Seriously? You're such an annoyance? Maybe it's about time you kick the bucket, huh? Narrowing her eyes to glare at me, my daughter-in-law Kiki, along with her mother Sierra, spat these words in my face. Even my precious grandson Hank, whom my late son left behind, joins them in pointing at me and laughing. Seeing this unfold, I felt like I had reached my breaking point. Why keep people around who wish you gone? They're not family. They're nothing. The weight I'd been carrying in my chest seemed to lift, leaving me feeling oddly liberated. Well then, leave. We want to live just as a family. Sierra shouts at me, sounding like a villain from some story. Hank repeats her words like a parrot. Seeing the two of them so pleased, I could only sigh. Despite their continued jeers and insults, I could only muster a dry laugh. All right, I said, retreating to my room immediately. And so I began to plan my revenge against these strangers who felt entitled to stay in my home without a second thought. I'm Amy, 72 years old this year. I had been living with my son Wendell's family, but since he passed away, I've been living with his wife Kiki and grandson Hank. But it seems they don't appreciate this at all. Whatever goodwill I've shown them has been met with indifference, if not outright malice. Amy, I'm sorry. Work will keep me late again today. Don't worry about it. Just do your best at work. I'll look after Hank. Kiki often comes home late from work. Feeling sorry, she informs me as such, and I always try to encourage her. With Kiki so busy, my days consist of looking after Hank. That said, Hank is a middle schooler now. He should be able to take care of himself. Hey, Grandma, why do you cook such terrible stuff? I'm sorry, but you're growing. I make sure to cook enough. I don't want it. Not in the mood to eat this crap. Maybe Hank has felt lonely since his parents often work and leave him home alone. I was having a hard time with Hank, who was in the throes of teenage rebellion. It didn't help that he was disappointed his grandmother was the one taking care of him. He would often ignore the meals I prepared, and I even found out he was tossing the lunch boxes I made for him in the morning. He wouldn't lift a finger to do his laundry, but if I took it upon myself to bring it to his room, he'd snap at me. Don't come into my room without permission. I couldn't be too firm with him. I felt guilty for not allowing him to be indulged by his parents and having him endure instead. Yet, there was another factor that was making his behavior worse. Sierra, Kiki's mom. Really, Amy? You're feeding my grandson this junk? I'm sorry. Hank, Granny brought you some of your favorites. Go ahead, eat up. Awesome. You're a lifesaver. Sierra would come by unexpectedly, barge in without so much as a greeting, and shower Hank with gifts she called souvenirs. Even though they were Hank's favorite foods, they were often high in calories and greasy, just making his dislike of vegetables worse. Even if I hinted at his picky eating habits, Hank didn't listen. He had a powerful ally in his maternal grandmother. Sierra loves to criticize me, taking any opportunity to say whatever she wanted, making both Hank and herself feel better in the process. At times, she would even badmouth Wendell, who had passed away, leaving behind not just me, but our kids and his wife. Hank probably preferred Sierra over me, who nagged him daily. I was growing increasingly frustrated with Hank's worsening attitude and Sierra's enabling behavior. Still, I kept my composure, telling myself it was only once or twice a week. But that composure broke when Kiki made a certain suggestion. By the way, Amy, my mom's coming over next weekend. Just a heads up. Oh, she gave notice this time. Usually she'd just come over saying we're family and doesn't need to ask. Upon hearing what I had to say, Kiki frowned, but didn't object.
Being a single mom and looking after a child at that age can't be easy, so I never insisted on moving out. I thought I'd be doing everything I could to help both of them.
My mom said she's okay with us living here together.
What? Sierra's going to live with us?
Yeah, Hank already adores my mom, so it should be fine, right?
Well, about that, I was at a loss for words. From Kiki's perspective, her own mother was more trustworthy. Even so, I'd been the one taking care of Kiki and Hank all this time. I was quite shocked that such a decision was made without even discussing it with me. Ignoring my reaction, Kiki continued.
I didn't even ask for Amy's opinion.
What do you mean?
Exactly what I said. Oh, please clean out Wendell's room. My mom is pretty efficient. She'll throw things out immediately.
I felt dizzy hearing her say this. She wanted to carelessly get rid of the memories in my late husband Wendell's room. The thought alone made my blood run cold. Rushing to Wendell's room, I started moving his belongings to my room, feeling a chill creeping into my heart. Sierra moved in before I knew it, and in no time, she acted like she owned the place. I had left some basic furniture in Wendell's room, thinking she would need it. But one morning, she had it all thrown out as bulk trash.
Who would want to use a bed that belonged to someone who's dead? Exactly. I told Amy to clear out the unnecessary stuff.
Maybe her ears aren't the only thing going bad in her old age. As Sierra moved a bed into Wendell's room, a bed that looked out of place, she said this. The way Sierra claimed the space as her own and disregarded Wendell, along with Kiki and Hank's support for her, was something I couldn't forget. Soon after Sierra moved in, I lost my place in the house. Kiki was often absent due to work. Hank refused to eat my cooking. And Sierra catered to Hank while treating me like an enemy. Enough of this. Learn something from Granny and cook something edible. Hank, you need to eat some vegetables too, or it's unhealthy.
Don't worry, Granny knows exactly what you like.
I'll make lots of it for you. With a smirk, they looked my way. While cleaning up the salad that had been knocked off the table, I pretended not to notice their contemptuous gaze. While Hank and I were sitting on the sofa happily eating the pizza that had been delivered without me noticing, I sighed. No matter how much this was for Hank's sake, being continually disregarded like this was disheartening. On top of that, feeling despised and being verbally abused made it hard to feel any love, even for my beloved grandson, left behind by my son. When did caring for Hank become more of an obligation than a pleasure? Reaching my limit, I took the opportunity to talk to Kiki when she came home late at night. I saw this as my last chance before our family bonds disappeared completely. However, Kiki was unaffected by my words, and she said,
So you're saying you don't like how my mom behaves?
You know, I thought living together in this house was a favor from me to you all. Can't you at least show a little appreciation as a family?
Huh, is that so?
I was the one who offered to continue living together after we lost Wendell, the breadwinner. I was also the one who decided to support Hank, who was emotionally unstable after losing his father. If family sentiments are absent in all of this, it wears down my soul. I tried to make Kiki understand my feelings, but she just grunted and said,
I'm tired,
then returned to her room without responding. The next morning on Kiki's day off, I was struck with a final blow.
Mom, listen. Amy doesn't like your attitude.
Oh, really? Maybe she's just lonely since Hank has been taken away from her. Suddenly, hearing this out loud, I was taken aback. While calling for Hank, they continued talking, glaring at me with malice.
She says this house is only running because of her generosity. What a high and mighty attitude.
I wonder what she's trying to say. Does she not understand she's not the only family member here?
Seriously, it's infuriating. Maybe you should die soon too, like someone's son.
Kiki spat out these words, with eyes wide open, glaring at me. Hank,
who had been laughing at the sight, repeated Kiki's words like a parrot.
Die soon? Ha! That's harsh. Whoa!
Hank, don't laugh so much. You'll make Amy feel bad. Witnessing this scene, I felt as if I'd reached my breaking point. What had I been thinking? Serving these people all along? Any feelings for my precious grandson, left behind by my son, had long vanished. As they say, people who wish for your absence aren't family or anything of the sort. A weight lifted from my chest, and I felt clear-headed for the first time in a while. What's with that look? Shocked to find out we're not family?
Have you finally lost it?
Fine. We're going to live as a family from now on. Get out. I can only muster a dry laugh in response to the three people mocking and berating me. Understood, I reply, and quickly retreat to my room. I start planning my revenge on these people who have overstayed their welcome in my home without a second thought. First, I call a moving company to get all of my belongings out of this house. The movers gladly accept the job. As soon as I hang up the phone, they arrive and start loading my things onto the truck with efficiency. Wait, why are you taking the furniture and appliances too? Because most of the things in this house were purchased by me. You're the only one getting kicked out. You should leave them. No, thank you. I have no intention of leaving anything for strangers. Maybe it's because I've always been accommodating. But the three are surprised by my calm response. But they were the ones who hurled unspeakable insults, proving they're not family or even decent human beings. I have nothing more to give them. When we started living together, I had said I wanted to save money, so I purchased most of the furniture and appliances. That includes Kiki's favorite microwave and Hank's go-to sofa. I have them promptly packed by the movers. As my belongings are being carted away, the three continue to snipe, albeit with unpleasant expressions. Well, fine. I'm actually glad you're getting rid of that old furniture. Makes things feel fresh.
Granny, why don't you buy me a new bed while you're at it?
Sure, let's get one bigger than before. I ignore their incessant sarcastic remarks and tape up the final box. After glancing around our empty house, apart from their rooms, I gave a cheerful, "Well then," turned my back to the three of them, and left. How wonderful this home is now that the nuisance is gone.
You don't have a home to return to anymore.
Spend your lonely retirement alone. Ignoring their noisy complaints, I couldn't help but chuckle. Do they really think this is over just because I walked out with my bags? I looked back once more at the three optimistic faces, wondering how they'd react to what was about to happen. A soft chuckle rose within me as I thought about it. Wait a minute, what did you do? The angry voice came over the phone a few days after I had left. After leaving, I quickly completed some paperwork. One afternoon while relaxing in a hotel, as I searched for a new place to live, I got a call from Kiki, who should have been working. Oh, took the day off. That's not the point. What did you do to our house? Kiki's words prompted me to respond with a deliberately feigned, "Ah," ignoring her shrill insults thrown at me as if she was under some kind of pressure. I casually handled the situation and answered her question. I sold the house. It's not my place to live anymore. You sold it? Our house? The house Wendell bought? It's not our house. It's my house. Did you forget about the asset division? When I said that, she fell silent, apparently having forgotten entirely. The house had been under my eldest son's name, but during the asset division, Kiki dumped all the messy paperwork on me because it was too much of a hassle. I agreed to her audacious request to transfer the house title to me in exchange for all financial matters concerning her and Hank. Realizing she had just now caught on to the facts, she started making frantic excuses. That's not what I meant. What I do with my house is my business. Please make moving arrangements soon. But then we'll have nowhere to live. Not my problem. That's someone else's house, as far as I'm concerned. As I was leaving Kiki, who had shouted loudly that it's more comfortable without the nuisance, had lost her enthusiasm and was mumbling softly. Behind her, 2 others seemed to have overheard. I heard a voice scolding her. "What are you going to do now?" "Why not ask Sierra? Heck, even your parents' old house, where you lived before, would do."
"Well, that house is even older than this one. There's no way I can go back there."
"Then find an apartment or something."
Can't we just have this house?"
"Are you kidding me? You want the house for free. Use the inheritance Wendell left you and figure it out." I gave her a piece of my mind, then chaos erupted on the other end of the line. Everyone was talking at once, making it impossible to understand what was being said, so I hung up the phone. For a while the calls kept coming, but I ignored them. Then a call from Hank's number came through. "Yes?" "Grandmother? I'm sorry. I want to live with you as a family again." "I see." "I promise no more complaints. The food you cook is actually really good." "Hearing that now only sounds like you're trying to butter me up." His words, contrasting sharply with his previous rough attitude, made me waver for a moment. But then I remembered the day Kiki said,
"Isn't it about time you died?"
with a horrifying smile, and Hank laughed loudly, as if mocking me. At that moment, I felt that he wasn't Wendell's child. Hank is Kiki's child, not Wendell's. I couldn't see any trace of Wendell in the shallow way they changed their tune and groveled the moment they faced trouble, despite wishing me gone. "Live happily with your family of 3, I said. "Wait, please, I apologize. Please forgive me." "Some mistakes can't be undone. Teach that to your mother and Granny, too." And with that, I hung up again. Calls from Kiki continued, but eventually ceased when she seemed to give up. Finally, everything was over. I folded my hands in front of a photograph of Wendell that I had placed on the table and reported to him in silence. A few days later, apparently the 3 of them had no option but to move back to Kiki's old family home after their house was put up for sale. According to a tearful phone call from Hank, Kiki had been recklessly spending Wendell's inheritance and living it up. Their financial recklessness led to constant arguments with Sierra, making every day stressful for Hank. "So what have you been up to?" "I don't feel like I belong in this house, so I've been hanging out at friends' places. I wish I could live with Grandma again." "Try not to be a burden to your friends, okay?" Hank keeps playing the victim card, but he makes no effort to appreciate his current family. Instead, he's just trying to win me over. It's clear he hasn't learned a thing, which I find frustrating. I'm not moved by Hank's appeals and choose to ignore them. Kiki, too, has called me, her voice laced with complaints about being yelled at by Hank and not being able to stand Sierra's lectures. Both Hank and Kiki only tell me things that are convenient for them, but I couldn't care less.
"Amy, can't we be a family again?"
"You seemed pretty happy when I was out of the picture, didn't you?"
"Well, that was a poor choice of words."
"You wanted me gone just like Wendell, didn't you? I can't be family with someone who says things like that." She stomped on my goodwill, calling it condescending, so I have no intention of doing anything more for her. Fed up, I decide to ignore calls from both of them. Then a call comes in from an unknown number. Answering it, I find, unsurprisingly, that it's Sierra. "Amy, being stubborn won't get you anywhere." "What are you talking about?" "Planning on living all alone? You can still come back, you know, just apologize." "Apologize and become what, your servant?" She still can't humble herself to apologize to me. They try to lure me back with their self-centered talks, but I can only laugh it off. "Don't you want to live with your cute grandchild again? Don't you regret abandoning your family?" "Regret it? Not a chance. You're the ones who cast me aside, saying I'm not family. Maybe you're the ones with regrets. That's why you're calling me." With that said, the call ends abruptly, amidst shouting on her end. Looking at the call ended on my phone, I once again affirm that I did nothing wrong. I've done all I can in that house.
Hank is old enough to know right from wrong. If they had even offered a single apology to Wendell, I might have reconsidered. But all they did was try to win my favor. So let them enjoy their real family. I sold the house and moved into a new apartment with the money. In my sunny new room, I offer a prayer to Wendell's picture. Whether they're real family or not, caring for others is what really matters. Smiling, I update Wendell's photo on how things have turned out for them. I don't have to worry about anyone else or be unnecessarily considerate anymore. Living alone in my comfortable new home feels incredibly refreshing.
Despite going through infertility treatment, we couldn't have a child. When I told my husband it was my fault, he snorted dismissively. I could tell he wanted to call me useless. Without asking about the treatment or anything, he left the room in a bad mood. My name is Mina. I'm 30 and I work full-time. I met my husband Marcus through a mutual friend. Marcus loves to read and has a literary vibe. I also loved books so much as a child that I dreamed of becoming a novelist. Marcus and I were instantly attracted to each other and started dating. We got married when we were both 26. I thought it was a happy marriage at the time. I believed that with Marcus, who shared my interests and worldview, we could build a peaceful home. But my dream of happiness cracked as soon as we got married. After the wedding, Marcus became obsessed with having a child. I want to have a family soon. Sure, Marcus has always dreamed of a family with children. Having a job and kids is a sign of a blessed family. It's a social status. I agree with working as a couple, but children aren't commodities. He keeps insisting as if you can just buy them at a store, and I started to feel uneasy about Marcus's ideal. When we were dating, he often said, "Our happiness is what matters." But after marriage, he started talking a lot about social status. To sum up Marcus's wishes, a wife and child would be trophies for him. I was slightly disappointed as this was a bit different from when we were dating. So a year into our marriage, things got tough for me. Because I couldn't get pregnant, we reluctantly started infertility treatment. From that point, Marcus's attitude towards me worsened. He openly mocked me in front of our in-laws. My sisters are amazing. They have 2 kids. Mina is not only low paid, but also infertile. Our sensible in-laws frowned at Marcus's insensitive words, and they sent me apologetic glances. The ones who stood up for me were my sister-in-law and her husband. My sister-in-law, Emile, is a career woman working for a large corporation. She has children, a son named Silas and a daughter named Alyssa. They are twin siblings. Emile's husband, who is my brother-in-law, Bobby, is a kind and gentle person. Emile and my husband, Marcus, are siblings with a 6-year age difference, and their personalities are polar opposites. Unlike the introverted Marcus, Emile is decisive and caring. That's why she's trusted and promoted at work. Marcus is jealous of his sister's situation. So when he gets tired of belittling me, he insults Bobby. Well, I get why my sister has to work hard. If Bobby is jobless, she has to work to make ends meet. Even when subjected to such childish sarcasm, Bobby doesn't react. I'm a stay-at-home dad, you know. Even when Bobby responds cheerfully, Marcus continues his tirade. Being a stay-at-home dad is pathetic. Even the incompetent Mina could do that. Just when I was about to speak up, wondering how much more he could belittle people. Marcus, if you say any more, I won't forgive you. Emil glares at Marcus with a stern face. Our in-laws intervene and the situation is diffused. After that, Emil called me aside to apologize. I'm sorry Marcus's words hurt you. It's not so much that they hurt, more like they're shocking. While Emil and I were talking, Bobby came over. Mina, come over sometime, just you. The kids want to play with you. As Bobby smiled, Silas and Alyssa, who were playing outside, came running over. Both hugged me and acted affectionate. Mina, come to our house next time. Alone. We'll be waiting for you. You have to come. Marcus's hurtful words had been tormenting me, but my in-laws and Emil's family were kind to me. My in-laws advised Marcus not to rush things, but it was in vain. Once Marcus found out we couldn't have children, he emotionally distanced himself from me. Even after learning about my infertility, my in-laws didn't blame me. Living happily as a couple is also a good life. They tried to console Marcus, but it had no effect. Happy with someone useless? What a waste of time. I had been constantly berated by Marcus for ruining his life. Exhausted from infertility treatment and ignored even when work was tough. I was concerned about my pale face. At work, my colleague, Mr. Johnson, a young employee I had mentored, said, Mina, you look really unwell. The boss and everyone are worried. I'm sorry. I might just be tired. Really, I'm sorry. I felt pathetic for causing concern even at work. I couldn't have children, was called incompetent by my husband, and had no one to talk to. Consulting Emil and Bobby would only deepen their rift with Marcus. I felt utterly cornered, manipulated by Marcus's ideals. Mr. Johnson, who had been watching my condition, sighed. You haven't done anything wrong, Mina, so please don't apologize. He told me not to think everything was my fault. I won't pry into your family matters, but bottling it up is also a problem. Thank you. Hearing that makes me feel better. Mr. Johnson, my colleagues and my boss were all concerned about me. When I looked down, my boss would cheer me up with a funny story, and colleagues would give me snacks. I felt warmly treated. Marcus may call me low-paid, but I loved my workplace. Time passed in this state, and when I turned 30, something happened. Emil was transferred for work. She was appointed as the branch manager for a 2-year term. Emil and her family, who had always been kind to me, were moving far away. I wouldn't be able to see the adorable Silas and Alyssa anymore. My in-laws were so sad about their reliable eldest daughter's transfer. When the transfer was decided, I helped Emil's family move. Marcus didn't even show his face, even though it was a weekend. While I was carrying heavy boxes, Emil said, Mina, that's heavy. Don't overdo it. Saying that, Emil helped me carry the boxes. Then she brought up Marcus. I hate to say this, but let me. I really dislike Marcus. I can't accept him even as my younger brother. Despite being 6 years apart, she seemed to dislike his selfishness and his imposing of his ideals. Bobby had been ignoring Marcus's sarcastic comments. It wasn't so much that he disliked Marcus. He seemed to look down on him. My nephew and niece, Silas and Alyssa, really don't like Marcus either. Their smiles vanish whenever he's around. Marcus, thinking he's the cool uncle, is totally mistaken. The smart twins, Silas and Alyssa, understand that I'm suffering because of Marcus. Mina, are you okay? Don't listen to what he says. We don't care about him, but we worry about you, Mina. Marcus is so disliked that even the kids refer to him as that guy. After helping with the move, I was about to leave when Emil offered me a thank you gift. No, really, your family always lifts my spirits. As I tried to decline, Bobby smiled. Your help made the move go smoothly. Please accept this as a token of our appreciation. Unable to refuse their kindness, I accepted the gift, which was a gift card, not cash. I also joined them for dinner at the insistence of Silas and Alyssa before heading home. When I got home, Marcus was waiting. He'd apparently been idly passing the time, not helping with the move. As I was about to take a shower and go to bed, Marcus asked, You're liked by Silas and Alyssa, aren't you? I'm certainly liked by them 100 times more than Marcus. Frowning, I listened as Marcus said something unbelievable. Even someone useless like you can raise kids. Let's adopt Silas or Alyssa. They have 2 kids. They can spare one. Marcus laughed. Are you serious? If you are, I despise you. There's no way Emil and Bobby would agree. More importantly, the twins would never want to live with an uncle they dislike. My attempts to talk sense into Marcus were futile. He fantasized about a world convenient for him and even suggested we move to where Emil and Bobby were relocating. There are plenty of companies in the countryside that would want someone like me. Stop it! Don't drag others into your delusional dreams. I couldn't hold back anymore, and we argued. Then Marcus dropped the bomb. We're moving to where my sister is relocating. If you don't like it, leave. At that moment, my anger exploded. Fine, I'll leave. I realized I couldn't live with this man any longer. I quickly packed my bags and left Marcus. My hometown is far away and my parents have passed on, so I temporarily took refuge at my in-laws' house. They welcomed me warmly, even late at night. When I exposed Marcus's selfish dreams, they were shocked and immediately contacted Emil. They kept apologizing to me, regretting how they had spoiled Marcus. The next day, Bobby came to see me in place of Emil. I was then asked to do something by the relocating family of my sister-in-law. My in-laws agreed, and so did I. Shortly after, I received divorce papers from Marcus. After completing the process, we were officially divorced. I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders after the divorce. It seemed foolish that I had endured this from the age of 26 to 30. 2 years have passed since the divorce. I have diligently continued my work, received promotions, and even have subordinates now. Mr. Johnson, a colleague I had mentored, is still around. I currently live in a condo owned by Emil's family, essentially house-sitting while they are away. I keep in touch with Silas and Alyssa, but haven't been able to visit due to my busy work schedule. Marcus communicated his desires to Emil and ended up estranged. He couldn't follow them on their transfer, and after multiple work failures, he was fired. His self-centered nature made him unpopular at work. He's job hunting now, having sold the house we lived in. All this I learned from Marcus's parents, who still care for me even after the divorce. They were even happy for me when I found a new partner with marriage in mind. Just as I was considering moving in with my partner, Emil contacted me. Mina, thank you for house-sitting. We've been ordered to return to headquarters soon. In other words, they're coming back to the condo I've been watching. I'm glad you're coming back. Actually, I updated Emil on my new relationship in the past 2 years. She was genuinely happy for me. We discussed my moving out of the condo and ended the call. Emil advised me not to overextend myself considering my job. Eventually, Emil's family returned, and I moved to another condo to start a new life with my partner. That's when I ran into my ex-husband, Marcus. The door to my workplace opened during business hours. Mr. Johnson immediately went to handle it. "We're quite busy at the moment. Please have a seat and wait." I heard a familiar, arrogant voice near where Mr. Johnson was guiding the guest. It was Marcus, my ex-husband. "Hurry up, I don't have all day." His intimidating tone scared the other customers. As the manager, I stepped in. "Sorry for the wait. We'll assist you shortly." Marcus was shocked to see me. "Why are you here?" "Don't you know? This is my workplace. I'm the manager." I had been working in real estate all along, earning various certifications like real estate license and CPM. My experience and qualifications led to a promotion to a chief position. While Marcus looked down on me, I became the person I wanted to be. That person is neither Marcus's wife nor the mother of Marcus's children. It's a life that has nothing to do with Marcus's status. I quickly asked Marcus what kind of property he was looking for. Mr. Johnson and my subordinates, recognizing a difficult customer, watched intently. "With your budget, we can't offer a condo. Even for an apartment, you'd need a guarantor." "Don't mess with me. I need a condo to get married. Find one." Even if he says so, it's impossible with Marcus's budget. Besides, his marriage is none of my business. "If you're not satisfied, please leave," I said, overly polite. Then Marcus started yelling. "A useless woman who can't even have kids acting all high and mighty." The yelling was so intense that the customers looked like they were about to call the authorities. Just as I was about to handle the situation firmly, Mr. Johnson stood behind Marcus. "Excuse me, you're disturbing the customers. Please leave." Intimidated by the tall Mr. Johnson, Marcus left in a huff. The scared customer seemed relieved. I also felt relieved that the situation didn't escalate, but Mr. Johnson scolded me. "Mina, or should I say Chief, don't take such risks." He was angry, saying it could have been dangerous if Marcus had gotten physical. I apologized, saying I'm sorry, and held my belly. When the customers were gone, Mr. Johnson wondered aloud. "Is that guy okay? You're pregnant with my child." "He's a bit odd. I'll be careful from now on, Mr. Johnson." When I gave a dodging smile, Mr. Johnson playfully said, "Mina, we're getting married soon. Call me by my first name, not my last name." I found his pouting cute and couldn't help but laugh. After divorcing Marcus, I hadn't planned on remarrying, but Mr. Johnson confessed his feelings. He had liked me since he joined the company and waited to confess until after my divorce. 1 year after the divorce, he told me his feelings. He's a man who cared for me all the while I was suffering with Marcus. I fell in love with the kind and generous Mr. Johnson. Although I'm divorced, he didn't mind at all. And when we were considering living together, I found out I was pregnant. I had lied to Marcus, saying I was the cause of our infertility. But that was a big lie. I just had a slightly difficult time getting pregnant. My love for Marcus, who pressured me alone for infertility treatment, vanished. Simply put, I didn't want to have Marcus's child, so I falsely claimed that treatment would be useless. Luckily, Marcus didn't look closely at the test records. I'm not interested in becoming a status symbol for Marcus. Fortunately, I'm having a child with Mr. Johnson, who always cared for me. Emile fully supported my decision when I told her the truth. So I married Mr. Johnson and had a healthy baby boy. I'm happy building a new family. Marcus, on the other hand, is living at his parents' home, unable to find a property. He was shocked to learn I had a child. a revelation made by Emil. He's still unemployed and blames everyone for ruining his dreams. Emil tried to knock some sense into him, saying, "Reflect on yourself. A family isn't about status." But Marcus remains jobless. He came to demand compensation for my false infertility claim, but was kicked out by Mr. Johnson. "If you cause any more trouble, we'll call the authorities." "Give me the compensation," Marcus yelled. I firmly told him, "You know, I did have some difficulty getting pregnant, but 90% of the problem was you. Want to see the medical certificate?" Marcus had never looked at the medical certificate, assuming he was fine. Even the obstetrician said the problem was more with Marcus than with me. Upon checking the medical certificate, Marcus broke down, claiming it was a hoax. When I told him it was a legitimate medical certificate, not a fake, he cried even more. I was annoyed, thinking my baby would wake up. I even considered suing him for the emotional harassment he was causing me. But Mr. Johnson calmly talked Marcus down, who was crying like a child. "You've made Mina suffer way more than this. If you want to cry, do it in your own bed." After that incident, Marcus never showed up in front of me again. When my former parents-in-law found out Marcus wasn't working and even tried to sue me, they were furious. Marcus became estranged from both his parents and Emil's family, and eventually stole money from his parents and disappeared. Everyone from his parents to his older sister said it was good he was gone. Around that time, Emil's family came to visit and met my baby. Silas and Alyssa took turns holding my child. Bobby and Mr. Johnson were chatting amicably. Emil lamented Marcus's foolishness. "He's always been paranoid, but he really is the worst younger brother. He'd oppress others just to achieve his own dreams. Even if he had a family, it would be a sham." While we were talking about Marcus, Silas and Alyssa came over. "He made fun of Dad. I hate him. Dad is kind and awesome. Yeah, Dad has lots of stock certificates. He's rich." Apparently, Bobby was making money through stock trading while being a stay-at-home dad. Marcus didn't know that. I was surprised to hear it for the first time, too. Mr. Johnson, holding our child, laughed warmly. "Silas and Alyssa, please be friends with this little one." At Mr. Johnson's request, Silas and Alyssa nodded in agreement. Though we're not relatives anymore, I was happy to be close to Emil's family. Just as I was thinking I'd like to continue being close, Silas and Alyssa asked Mr. Johnson a question. "What's your first name, Mr. Johnson? Mina calls you Mr. Johnson, too. Don't you have a first name?" Faced with the twins' serious question, Mr. Johnson looked at me and answered with a smile. "Actually, my name is Marcus, too. Never thought it would be the same as Mina's ex-husband," he said with a wry smile. I felt a bit guilty for never having considered this. As I was about to promise to call him by his name, Silas and Alyssa clapped their hands. "If you're interested in someone just like him, give him a nickname. If you don't like having the same name as him, we'll give you a cute nickname." Silas and Alyssa thought for a moment and wrote down a nickname for Mr. Johnson. The nickname the twins gave my husband was Marquis. It was a bit unusual, but Mr. Johnson became Marquis. As Emil and Bobby smiled, I thought to myself, I'll call him Mark, a name that only I will use. I called out to Mr. Johnson, who was being adored by Silas and Alyssa. "Mark! From now on, I'll call you Mark." Our child, watching our smiling faces, grinned happily.
"What do you mean you threw away the wall clock I gave you? It was $3,000. Mother-in-law shot me an angry glare, raising her voice. "Isabel, how could you keep something like that in our house, even if it's expensive?" I tried to stay calm but couldn't contain my emotions. I glared back at mother-in-law, expressing my distrust. That beautiful wall clock had an unbelievable twist to it. My name is Sasha. I'm 33. I was proposed to by Daniel, who is 5 years older than me, and we got married. Daniel was my boss at work. I was drawn to him because he was always there for me, not just for work problems, but for personal ones too. I genuinely hoped to get along with mother-in-law and build a good relationship when I decided to marry Daniel. He always wanted us to get married soon. I think my mom would be so happy to meet you before we marry. I've always wanted to meet your mother. Let's definitely go. Daniel's father left a legacy, but passed away early. Being the only child, it seemed Daniel was raised with a lot of care by mother-in-law, and he wanted to give her peace of mind by marrying soon. With butterflies in my stomach, I went with Daniel to his childhood home where mother-in-law was waiting. The moment mother-in-law saw me after answering the doorbell, her expression changed. "You look rather plain," mother-in-law whispered in my ear, ensuring it was barely audible. I was taken aback by the unexpected remark and stared at mother-in-law in shock. Daniel seemed completely unaware of what had just transpired. "Come on in and make yourselves at home." As if nothing had happened, mother-in-law invited us inside. Did I just imagine what Isabel said earlier? I was puzzled, but reassured myself that mother-in-law meeting me for the first time couldn't possibly be that rude. Later, when mother-in-law was preparing tea in the kitchen, I went to help, and she started bombarding me with questions. "How old are you? What's your educational background?" "I am 33. I went to a community college and have been working at my current job since graduation." I was taken aback by her sudden questions about my age, but I answered politely. But mother-in-law's attitude changed instantly upon hearing my reply. "Not so young, and not very well educated. I wonder what he sees in you." "Excuse me?" I couldn't hide my shock at this rude remark. "Do you really think you're good enough for my son? You're not even that pretty and don't seem to have any redeeming qualities." "You don't need to go that far. I wanted adorable grandchildren to show off, but I doubt you can give me that. I can't boast about a daughter-in-law like you." Mother-in-law clearly disapproved of our marriage. How can she demean me like this when her son isn't around? Yet, I didn't want to cause a scene before the wedding and upset Daniel. Honestly, my first impression of mother-in-law was terrible. I didn't want to confront her and make things awkward with Daniel, who's always been caring and kind to me. So I decided to ignore her hurtful comments and endure them. Not long after we had our wedding. Since then, I've been managing both my job and household chores. Daniel, however, didn't help with the chores and left everything to me. Gradually, I felt overwhelmed doing housework alone and decided to talk to Daniel. "Could you help a little with the chores? We're both working and doing everything alone is tough." I tried to put it gently, but Daniel's attitude changed sharply. "Women are supposed to do the housework. My mom managed everything on her own. Why can't you?" "But Isabel was a housewife, right? We both work." "Anyway, I don't need to do what women should. Just handle it." I can't believe. Since our marriage, Daniel had become cold. He used to be so caring and dependable at work, but now he seems to view me more as a housekeeper than his wife. Furthermore, mother-in-law began to interfere in our married life. Living close to our new home, mother-in-law would frequently drop by. She seemed to monitor me, and any little thing that she didn't approve of, she'd point out. She even threw out my dishes, exclaiming, "This tastes horrible. How can anyone eat this?" And if she found a speck of dust, she'd say, "Look at this dirt," and make me clean repeatedly. "You're really an incompetent daughter-in-law. I'm sorry. You're not fit for my son. I should move in and train you right." The idea of living with mother-in-law was horrifying. If we lived together, I envisioned being berated daily and taken advantage of. "I appreciate the offer, but I want to spend time with Daniel right now." "You're rejecting my generous offer, despite being such a failure of a daughter-in-law?" Since then, mother-in-law kept pushing for us to live together. Exhausted, I turned to Daniel. "It's your fault you can't get along with Mom. Do your chores properly so she won't worry." Daniel seemed disinterested and didn't take my concerns seriously, leaving me drained dealing with mother-in-law. However, about a week later, mother-in-law stopped coming over and the pressure to live together ceased. Thank God she finally understands how I feel. Surprisingly, she gifted me an antique-looking beautiful wall clock that clearly was expensive. You haven't received a wedding gift yet, right? This clock is worth $3,000. Take good care of it. Thank you so much for this beautiful clock. I felt joy, thinking I was finally accepted as a family member. However, after receiving the clock, mother-in-law's phone calls began to include bizarre comments. If you have time to nap in the living room, you should be doing chores. How did you know I was resting for a bit? I can easily imagine what an inefficient daughter-in-law like you would do. Once might be a coincidence, but after that, frequent calls started coming in with comments like, relying on store-bought meals is lazy, and if you have time to watch TV, you should be doing housework. I was deeply unnerved, wondering how she knew what I was doing. Come to think of it, these calls began right after I received that clock. It felt as though the clock was watching my every move. Could it be? To confirm my suspicion, I took off the clock's cover to inspect the inside. Just as I thought. To my horror, I found something inside. I took a picture of it as evidence and immediately disposed of the clock. That evening when Daniel returned from work, he immediately noticed the clock's absence. Where's the beautiful clock? I got rid of it because that clock... Before I could explain, Daniel flared up in anger. What? You threw away an important gift from Mom? That's it. We're getting a divorce. Without listening to me, he stormed off to his mother's house. The mention of divorce, especially so soon into our marriage, left me devastated and speechless. He won't even talk or face me. Daniel doesn't trust me. This isn't fair. Overwhelmed with frustration and wanting to change the situation, I decided, I can't let it end like this. The next day, determined to prove my innocence and expose mother-in-law's deeds, I visited her home. Showing up without notice. Clearly your parents didn't raise you right. What do you want? You should know why I'm here. What are you talking about? I disposed of that clock you gave me. It had no place in our home. Mother-in-law's eyes blazed with fury as she shouted hysterically. How could you? Do you know the value of that clock? Must have been valuable to you, considering you could spy on our home with it. Yes, inside that clock was a tiny built-in camera. But when confronted, mother-in-law arrogantly smirked. Caught on quicker than I thought. It was to expose what an inadequate daughter-in-law you are. Excuse me. I thought if my son knew how useless you are, he'd divorce you and find someone better. What you did is a crime. Despite my sincere anger, mother-in-law mocked me with a sarcastic grin. But there is no evidence left, is there? You impulsively threw the clock away, after all. When Daniel finds out about the hidden camera, he won't forgive even you. We'll see. He's on my side. Plus, thanks to the clock, I succeeded in driving a wedge between you two. It was worth every penny. Mother-in-law looked at me with disdain, not showing an ounce of remorse for her actions. I discreetly slipped my hand into my pocket. Her arrogance would be her downfall. Unbeknownst to the smug mother-in-law, I had secretly recorded our entire conversation. Surely playing this record to Daniel would make him understand why I threw away the clock. Since our marriage, Daniel rarely listened to my side of the story, but this time, I hoped he would truly be supportive. That night, when Daniel returned home briefly for an errand, I opened up about everything that transpired with mother-in-law. As he listened, his face grew increasingly stern. I thought, finally, he understands. But to my surprise, Daniel's response was not what I expected. You and your wild imaginations. Cool your head and apologize to Mom. You don't believe me. I have evidence right here. Why would Mom do such a thing? Stop lying. Just believe me for once. Enough. The only reason I came back was to give you this. Without letting me finish, Daniel presented me with divorce papers. Why couldn't he understand? He had shattered all my hopes. Daniel wasn't willing to listen to me and clearly did not trust me. I had given him one last chance to make things right, but I realized I couldn't stay married to a man like him. Without hesitation, I signed the divorce papers. Later that day, armed with the photographic and recorded evidence, I headed to the police station to take action. It's no joke. I just took a little peek in my daughter-in-law's private life in exchange for giving her an expensive clock. When the police arrived, mother-in-law lashed out, swinging her arms in a frenzy. Her violent outburst led to her being arrested, not only for invasion of privacy, but also for assaulting an officer. The commotion drew the attention of many neighbors, and of course, from a distance, I watched as Daniel noticed me and approached, fuming. "What have you done? Release Mom now and apologize." Remember when I tried to tell you about the camera? Had you listened to me, none of this would have happened. But do you really want your own mother to be labeled a criminal? Confronted with the reality of the situation, Daniel's face turned pale, and he profusely apologized. "I was wrong. I'll do anything. Please forgive me. After we got married, you rarely listened to me, and when I told you about the hidden camera, you didn't believe me. Do you realize how much that hurt me? I didn't want to believe Mom could do something like that. I hoped everything would be fine if I denied your claims. I was kind of aware since Mom had been calling me about what you were doing at home." "You knew about the hidden camera and the clock?" It wasn't that I knew for sure, but I wanted an easy way out. I'm so sorry. I'll make it up to you in any way." But his apologies now felt hollow. Knowing that he was aware of the hidden camera, yet still blamed me and thrust divorce papers at me, was unforgivable. I've recorded our conversation. As for the divorce settlement, be prepared to pay. Whether or not I'll press charges against Isabel depends on how you make amends. Following negotiations, Daniel agreed to pay a compensation of 3 million yen. Meanwhile, interactions with mother-in-law, who was held in detention, were done through my attorney. "I don't want to be a criminal. Please forgive me." During a meeting with her lawyer, I heard she was inconsolable and continuously wept. In the end, mother-in-law was released after paying a settlement of 1 million yen. However, the news of her spying quickly spread throughout the neighborhood. With her high pride, mother-in-law became too embarrassed to step outside, becoming isolated as neighbors and acquaintances kept their distance. Daniel, who always defended mother-in-law, also faced cold stares. It seems no one expects him to find a young and beautiful partner, let alone remarry. Since we worked at the same place, the news of our divorce spread quickly. The awkwardness at work was palpable, and before long, Daniel resigned. On the other hand, I've managed to move on from both mother-in-law and Daniel, and I am now very happy. My hard work has been recognized, and I even received a promotion. I believe that after hardships in life, happiness will always come around. With that belief, I'm living each day to the fullest.
Business trip? You just work it remotely and you say you have a business trip. You're just trying to dodge housework, aren't you? It's not like that. I really have work to do. Don't talk back. Just listen to your husband. A year into my marriage with my husband, he never recognizes my freelance work. Worse yet, he verbally abuses me, treating me like a mere housekeeper. I'm the one supporting the household, even paying the rent, but he uses me mercilessly without a shred of gratitude. At this point, I can't just stay quiet. I'll turn the tables and use my husband's threats of divorce papers to my advantage. With the image of his frantic scrambling in my mind, I headed for my business trip. My name is Maya, a 29-year-old employed by a publishing company. My husband's name is Bill, 5 years my senior at 34. We met 3 years ago when work took me to a different region. Bill's job was similar to mine. We both went to local places to sum up the current situation and write articles about it. We both worked in publishing, and with shared goals, we quickly clicked. We'd go on reporting trips together, and even after returning, would keep in regular contact. After 2 years of dating, he proposed. We didn't have a wedding ceremony, but we wore wedding dresses and tuxedos for photos, pledging our love in our own way. Post-marriage, we both moved into the condo where I have been living. Since there was extra space, the move went smoothly. Upon getting married, I thought about pursuing my dream of freelancing. Leaving my job would mean losing benefits, but I wanted to take the challenge on my own. About a week after the wedding, I decided to discuss this with Bill. I brought it up while we were having dinner together after work. "Hey Bill, I'm thinking of quitting my current job at the publishing house." "What? Why all of a sudden? Didn't you say you wanted to work harder?" "Yeah, I did, but I want to try freelancing." "Freelancing? You're going to become an independent reporter?" "Yes. I want to work freely without being constrained by the company's policies." I candidly shared my genuine feelings. I thought Bill, being in the same industry, would surely understand. But then, what came out of my husband's mouth wasn't encouragement, but mockery. Piffed. Independence? Really? Come on. You know that's not gonna happen. Why? How can you be so sure if I haven't even tried? You're dreaming too big. The only reason your articles are popular is that you work for a publishing company. That may be true, but what? You think you can keep that popularity if you go solo? That's not fair. Look, you're not cut out for this. We're married. Focus on housemaking, not your career. As he ate the dinner I made, he spoke those cruel words as if they were nothing. I was infuriated. Today, even his comments on the taste of the food bothered me. I tried to persuade him more than once, but he was unyielding. He even threw harsh words like, "You can't do it. It's a waste of time." Yet, I didn't plan on taking this lightly either. If I gave up on my dream now, I'd regret it for sure. So I ignored his words and decided to go for it. I submitted my resignation and ventured on a path as a freelance reporter. That night, after quitting my job without telling him, Bill erupted. "What the hell? Didn't I tell you not to quit?" "I'm sorry, but I just can't give up. What if this jeopardizes our finances? Can you take responsibility?" "Well, about that, enough. Listen, I'm only putting $1,000 a month into our expenses. If that's not enough, I'm not covering for you. Got it?" "I understand." I thought he would support my dream as partners should, but reality was much harsher. A rift formed between us, with the one person I needed support from the most rejecting me. Bill, why would he say such things? All I wanted was his support for my dream. Was it naive to expect complete understanding just because we're married? It's painful, but I can't give up my dream here. I have to succeed now more than ever because I chose to act against his will. I strengthened my resolve. His verbal attacks and pressure intensified over time. He started berating not just my work, but me as a person. When I came home even a little late, he would get furious. "What time do you think it is? It's past 7 p.m. "I'm sorry, traffic was bad." "Didn't I always say to be back by 5? "No dinner ready when I get home. That's unacceptable." "I'm sorry, I'll make it right now." "I already ordered delivery. Expect a bill for that later." Staying overnight for field reporting was an absolute no-go, thanks to my husband's rules. So I had no choice but to limit my reporting to places I could visit and return from within the same day. But sometimes interviews take longer than expected or traffic just doesn't cooperate. You can't predict what will happen until you're actually on the scene. My husband insisted that I be home by 5 p.m., but that's not always doable, given how weather or unforeseen circumstances could throw a wrench in the works. That being said, confronting my husband head-on was not an option. He goes to a physical office every day and works his tail off while I have the freedom to work remotely unbound by organizational rules. I guess he couldn't stand that our working environments were so different. Understanding his feelings, I always tried not to provoke him, but I kept striving in my career as a feature writer. Initially, I submitted articles to various platforms on a freelance basis and got paid per assignment, but eventually I started getting direct commissions. I even got requests to start a blog, so in addition to feature writing, I began blogging too. My income skyrocketed as a result. Before I knew it, I was earning roughly 3 times what I made as a salaried employee. Some months, I even pull in more than $10,000, providing more than enough for our savings. Even after achieving a stable monthly income of $10,000, I kept it a secret from my husband. I knew he'd flip if he found out I was freelancing and making more money than him. A year into our marriage, his attitude hasn't changed. If anything, it's gotten worse, and our conversations are practically non-existent. Instead, he increasingly berates me. Then, one fateful day. On a rare day off, I bought some clothes from a luxury store. When I got home, my husband glared at the shopping bags and sneered. "You can barely bring in any money and you're out shopping like it's nothing. Do you even know your place? I earned the money myself, so why can't I spend it?" "Huh, really? Aren't you using the $1,000 I give you every month?" "That's not it. That $1,000 can even cover rent. Why would I touch that?" "Did you just call me low income?" "No, nobody's saying that." Suddenly, he hurled his beer can at me. It narrowly missed me but spilled all over my new clothes. "What are you doing?" Fuming, he shouted back. "I give you $1,000 every month, okay? You should be grateful." "Grateful? The missing rent and all the other bills are paid from my earnings. You must be dipping into your savings, right? There's no way you're making more than me. Believe what you want, but I'm not burdening you, not in the slightest. Go ahead, keep talking. Don't expect any handouts from me later on." My husband threw a can and sneered at me, not even bothering to apologize. I felt like I was reaching my breaking point with him. Several months later, I received a direct request from the publishing company I regularly contribute to, asking me to cover natural disasters overseas. It's an overseas assignment, so a day trip was out of the question. I decided to tell my husband about the work trip. "Bill, I know it's short notice, but I'll be traveling overseas for work this weekend." "Work trip? You're just a freelancer. What are you talking about? You just want to slack off on housework, don't you?" "That's not it. I really have to go. There's no way a freelancer like you has to go on an overseas work trip. How could you lie like that?" "It's not a lie. I was directly asked by the publisher." "Don't talk back. Just listen to your husband." As if I were the one being unreasonable, my husband continued to berate me. Fed up with his irrational behavior, I glared at him. Finally, he spoke, clearly irritated. "Do you even know your place? You're just a reporter in name only, practically unemployed, and yet I still stay married to you." "Stay married to me?" "Yeah. You wouldn't survive without me. If you have a problem with that, let's divorce." My husband pulled out divorce papers from his suit pocket and tossed them in front of me. That was the moment. A vein in my temple throbbed, and a rage I've never felt before consumed me. I can't take it anymore. I absolutely refuse to stay married under these conditions. From now on, I'll use him to my advantage. My husband always threatened me with divorce papers whenever he was displeased. Until now, I'd always apologized because I didn't want a divorce, but I realized that wasn't necessary anymore. I filled out the divorce papers and submitted them while he was out. I also arranged to terminate our condominium lease at the end of the month. Furthermore, I moved up my overseas work trip and headed to my destination that day. I didn't tell my husband anything and kept my messages and call notifications off. Having finished all my work, I returned home after 2 weeks abroad. The time was already past 8 p.m. and the lights were on in the house. I didn't want to see him, but I had no choice but to go home. Taking a deep breath, I opened the front door. Hearing that, a series of loud footsteps erupted from the living room. I looked up and saw Bill standing tall with his arms crossed. Just as I was about to speak, he started yelling at me. You have the nerve to come home like nothing happened. Where have you been without even replying to my messages?" "I told you, remember? I was on a business trip abroad." "Business trip? Business trip? Seriously, as if someone like you, who occasionally works remotely to write boring articles, could ever go on a business trip. I told you, I got an assignment from the publishing company. I even got paid for it this time." "Paid? What did you get, like $10? What a fool! Spending money on transportation to go abroad just to make $10. Bill kept on belittling me with his crude laughter. But what he didn't realize is that we're no longer husband and wife. He's only able to act so high and mighty because he doesn't know, and his words no longer have any effect on me. Finally, I calmly said, "Do you enjoy putting people down like that?" "What? What are you talking about? If you feel belittled, it's your fault, isn't it?" "I haven't done anything to be looked down upon by you. In fact, I make about 5 times more than you do." 5 times? As if. That would mean you're making close to $10,000 a month. "Yes, that's correct." "What?" Faced with this unexpected truth, Bill's face twitched. He clearly couldn't stand the fact that I made more than he did. Fuming, he blurted out, "You've got to be kidding me, you're such a liar. I'm divorcing a wife who won't even do the housework." Panting heavily, Bill shoved new divorce papers in my direction. With a smile, I revealed the truth to him. Another new form for me to sign. "Yes, sign this quickly." "Don't worry, I already submitted the divorce papers 2 weeks ago." What are you talking about?" "We're not married anymore. Why are you still in this house?" Bill stammered, barely able to get words out. Finally, he spoke. "What do you mean you filed for divorce? Why would you do that?" "Why? Because you handed me the papers." "But I didn't really want a divorce." "Well, too bad. I thought it was okay to part ways, so I filed." "You've got to be kidding me. I just gave you those papers to scare you into understanding your role as my wife." Bill grabbed my shoulders, his eyes filled with anger. As I suspected, he never intended to divorce me. He just wanted to intimidate me into obeying him. Knowing this, I chose to divorce him anyway. I realized I could never be happy with him. Finally understanding this, I unleashed all my pent-up feelings. "You think you can lecture me? Do you know how it feels to have your dreams mocked by the one person who should support you?" "Hold on, Maya, Don't call me like we're friends. We're divorced. We're strangers now." "What am I supposed to do now? Can I stay here?" "This is my condo. You're essentially trespassing. I never want to see you again. Leave now." I threw Bill's belongings out. Initially he resisted, but eventually gave in, shoulders drooping. After that, Bill called his parents and apparently moved his stuff to their place. However, due to the circumstances, they refused to let him stay and told him they wouldn't help him financially. As a result, he had no choice but to live on his limited income and move to a cheap apartment far from his workplace. He can't spend money like he used to, and just getting by has become a struggle. His savings have run out, and now he's living a dull life just trying to save money. As for me, I've signed a lease on a different condo and started living alone. The move went smoothly, and now I'm enjoying my work in my new home office. Thankfully, my articles are getting featured on major online platforms. The blog I started on recommendation has also become a good source of income as the number of visitors kept increasing. I plan to continue doing what I love, writing great articles and covering stories from places that interest me. I want to keep my current job, but do it in a way that's sustainable for me.